everyone, it's Haley, and today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review for The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. So usually I'll make my own synopsis, but I really liked part of the synopsis on Goodreads for this book, so I just decided to read that. So it says, it's just a small story really, about, among other things, a girl, some words, an accordionist, some fanatical Germans, a Jewish fistfighter, and quite a lot of thievery. Now, I do think that the other part of the synopsis gives too much away, so all I'm going to say is it's a story that is set in World War II, so it's a historical fiction, and it follows a little girl. It's narrated by Death, and it's her trying to kind of figure out life in the midst of all the chaos of World War II in Germany. The writing of this book is honestly just a beautifully crafted work of art is the only way I can think of describing it. You can tell that so much care went into writing this book and choosing the right words to tell the story. And this book focuses a lot on words and storytelling as a function, and I think that you really see that come through in the writing as well, and how the author chooses his words carefully and makes sure that he's using the right words to convey his message. This book also has some German thrown in there that's really seamlessly translated, and you kind of don't even notice it. It's kind of just thrown in there slyly, but it makes the story seem so authentic, and it kind of brings you to World War II Germany, and it brings you to that time and really makes you consider what's going on. And that authenticity just really makes this book even more powerful than it would be without it. Now, the narration of this book is where I think it really shines. So it can be intimidating at first because the story is told through the eyes of Death. So if you don't know that going into this book, you can get a little bit confused when you're first reading it. I think that's the main critique that I've heard, but I think that it is just such a powerful narration technique, because having Death narrate in the time where death is just so prevalent, death is all around, really makes you not able to ignore the fact that death is just a fact of life, especially in World War II Germany. And you see that when the narrator is calling attention to himself. He increasingly throughout the story starts to develop as a character on his own, and he kind of becomes a character in the book. And I would argue that really this is his story rather than Liesel's. It's the story of how he sees Liesel and she changes his life. I think you know that it's not going to be a happy story because, I mean, it's World War II and in Germany, it's about a little girl and it's told from the perspective of Death. You know it's not going to be happy, but I think it becomes powerful as well as heartbreaking with the narration of it. The narrator and the narration really just couldn't be ignored, and I think it was just such an effective mode for the story that Zusak was trying to tell. So Liesel is our protagonist, and she is really little. I'm not sure exactly how old she is. I believe she's 13 in the end of the book, but it's really hard to read such a powerful and heartbreaking story where you're focused on a child, because I felt like holding Caulfield and I just wanted to be the catcher in the rye and just save her from everything around her. She was forced to learn that the world isn't the happy place that she thought it was. Her innocence was taken away so quickly, and she wasn't really given the chance to live as a normal child would. And I just found it to be so heartbreaking because she really was such an amazing character, and I think that she had this potential for so much imagination. But I mean, how do you imagine when you have all of these terrible things going on around you that you're trying to make sense of? She was a very intelligent and mature character for her age, but I think it made sense given the circumstances that she was in. She was really forced to grow up a lot quicker than any other kid was. I think having her as the protagonist and Death interacting with her was really interesting because you could see his affection for her, which you don't imagine Death to be affectionate, but you got to see that kind of affection that he had and saw how she was special and she was different from the other people around her. The Hubermans, I know that's probably not how you pronounce it. It's probably Ubermans, but I'm not German at all and I don't know how to pronounce those things. But I loved the family that she was put in. I think that they were just just so interesting. In contrast to her, you had Hans, who was just this lovable teddy bear, but he's like this gruff old man. Like, I just loved him and I wanted to just hug him. He was so great, and his love for Liesel was just, it was so poignant. You could really see it. And the same with Rosa. Now, Rosa is really that kind of cuddly shark, I guess. She is a really hard character on the outside, but she has so much love to give, and I think that's why her and Hans work as a couple, and I think that's why they were the perfect family for Liesel, because they were so loving and caring, but they also were a really great foundation for her. And you could really see how Liesel was kind of the glue that tied them all together, and how their family worked because she was there, and it was just great. Now, I don't want to get too much into the other characters because I think it's better if you are introduced to them by the narrator. I think reading the book for yourself and being introduced to these characters when you're reading it is the best, but I will say that I did love the relationships that Liesel formed, and I had a really interesting love for each character. I found that I uniquely loved each different character, if that makes sense. But seeing Liesel interact with all these different people, you really got to see more about her as well as more about them and the narrator. It really revealed a lot. And honestly, rereading this book, I felt like being reintroduced to these characters. It was like catching up with old friends, and you can't say that about a book often. You don't really get that connection to a book all that often, and I just am so glad that I was able to reread this and get that experience all over again. So this book has quite a few plots going on, and they all kind of connect to make this great story, and it makes you feel like you're following Liesel really as she grows up. It's a coming of age story, I would say, because you get to see her come of age really quickly, but you get to see how she interacts with the different characters and how she tries to make sense of the tragedy that is going on around her. I'm not going to get too far into the plot because, once again, I feel like it's better to just go with the flow and kind of let the narrator guide you through the story, and that's really the best way to read it, is just to kind of let yourself go into the story and let the narrator take you by the hand and guide you through it. The plot really has everything. It's heartbreaking, heartwarming, suspenseful. You never know what's going to happen, and you're scared the whole time you're reading this book about like what is going to happen to these characters. You just want to protect everyone, and you just can't. So it's really an emotional story. It really engrosses you. It takes you along for this ride, and it completely bewitches you, and you don't even realize how connected you are to these characters until the very end. And you see that you had such a deep connection with this book, and it just has completely wrecked you. Overall, I honestly think this is the hardest review that I've ever had to film because this is my all-time favorite book. There's nothing that I can say that will do this book justice. I just think you need to read it. Even if you hate it, I think it's impossible to read this book without taking something away from it and without being changed forever. This book literally changed my life. I just absolutely adored it, and I will never get tired of reading this book. I just think it is so incredible, and everyone needs to read it at least once in their lifetime. So that's going to be all for today's review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you have read this book, your thoughts on it, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!